sorry, just to
Whether
jump in on that point, like was the sort of nasiha, the sort of advice or counsel you got was you really shouldn't marry a Christian girl. You should marry Muslim.
100%. So in St. Louis, the older crowd, like that tend to go to the Imam Warthadi Muhammad affiliated masjid, many of them had married Christians. And many of the early Muslim immigrants from Pakistan and Arab countries had married Christians. But by the time I came along, the focus was on the married Muslims.
Mhm.
Problem in St. Louis is there's no Muslim women to marry. So these conventions or visiting places like Philadelphia became a place where you could meet a Muslim woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other option, people started going to Morocco because the word got out that Moroccans were open to marrying Americans. So a lot of people, not just in St. Louis, but throughout the country, and I recommend some academic. I mean, you have academics of American Islam writing books about very boring topics,
Yeah.
but two topics you can write about is Islam becoming mainstream in Philadelphia, number one, right? I mean, if 20 Muslim yuppies start a third space in the suburbs of Cleveland, it'll get a book. But Islam becoming mainstream in the city of Philadelphia doesn't get a book because Black, working class, too theologically conservative.
Mhm.
The other thing is the Moroccan thing. This is a very interesting phenomenon. There's so many, and now their kids are grown, and their kids are teenagers, and their kids have kids. There's this whole generation of Black Muslim / Moroccan marriages. And I really think some academics need to take a look at it as a book.
Yes, that one
Yeah.
country.
So yeah. We don't need any more Muslim yuppie books. We're exhausted on that.
So connected to the Morocco bit. I mean, it's kind of a different topic. It's really just kind of superficially related, but I don't know. It came into my mind. You hear sometimes about the idea of Hijra, right? Like, and that this is kind of a Salafi thing. I mean, the whole topic is complicated because there's questions, debates among jurisprudence about like, living as a minority in a non-Muslim society generally, but in the Salafi world, like how many people were saying like it's just not okay to carry out your life as a Muslim in a place of kufr, where you can't fully live as a Muslim. You don't hear that then the laws that you have to follow are imposed upon you by this democratic system, which doesn't have, Sharia as its origin. So like you hear this kind of chat a lot, and were there guys or ladies or families? I mean, I know there were some, obviously, but like, was it a significant idea out there that you really should think of going to Saudi, Turkey, maybe Morocco?
Not Turkey.
Not Turkey. Okay.
Yes, it was a very significant idea, and a lot of people went. You got to remember, you're talking about a small community, so a rather large amount for a small community went. And so, if you want to start out, even before I entered the scene, Sudan became very popular.
Okay.
Because you have the interests of Hassan al-Turabi and Omar Bashir, who were promoting like an Islamic style government. But I think that the living was just
really
too rough.
Guy, but anyway, another topic. Very fascinating.
The living was just too rough. And so the thing in the 90s became get a job in the Gulf teaching Arabic. And the irony is more Muslim women had college degrees than men.
What you mean teaching English in the Gulf?
Teaching English.
Yeah.
Teaching English in the Gulf.
Yeah.
So they could get those jobs. So that was one path where men, Muslim brothers or sisters, could get jobs over there. But statistically, more women had college degrees. So they were able to go over there, take their families, and teach English. Egypt was another option because you had places like the Fajr Center teaching teaching Arabic. So if you wanted to go and study the language, you can go to Egypt. And then you had, depending on your Salafi or Sufi, the Salafis would go to Yemen with Sheikh Mukbil. And then you had Sufis would go to Hijrah. So they had a big Sufi thing in Hijrah. So the Gulf, Yemen, I mean, technically part of the Gulf, but, sociologically, I guess you have to split it, and economically, and then Egypt. Those were the spots. Okay. Turkey had not Turkey was not on the Muslim radar until much later,
So Erdogan
with the rise of
power.
and neo-Ottomanism, etc.
Were there
What
debates
happened?
between people where some folks were like, no, listen, this is a place to do dawah, like we can build Islam in America, this is sort of a good thing, and others were like, no, like it's just more important to be in a Muslim environment, like think about you and your family, do hijrah.
Yeah, so there were those debates. People saying, look, if you raise your kids here, they'll be upon kufr. There's no way they can stay Muslim in a society.
Mhm.
And we are Islamically obligated to live in Muslim lands. Some people say it was even wajib to live in Muslim lands. I have a friend of mine right now. He's a quote unquote illegal immigrant in Saudi Arabia, there with no status,
Mhm.
because he won't come back to the U.S.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you know
So,
Asim and Hakim. Do you know this sheikh in Saudi,
yes,
Asim Hakim?
yeah,
So he
yeah,
just,
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
just
I
saw on
know,
Twitter, I don't think he used the
yeah.
word wajib, it was in English, but he basically said, you cannot be living in Darakuf. You've got to come to an Islamic country.
Yeah. So the problem is that it almost never works because, like myself, not college educated, and the vast majority of the people in the Salafi Dawah movement, in the convert sense, was mostly African American, were people without college degrees. There were some, but generally that Dawah was not attractive to a college educated crowd. So these are people on the economic margins largely of American society.
Okay.
And many had managed to find decent jobs in the United States, working in hospitals or maybe working government jobs or et cetera, quit those jobs to make Hijra, quote unquote, which worsened their economic situation. Many of them experienced health issues. Their kids usually came back warped, strange, not at home in the United States society, but they were never going to get a passport, a citizenship of these countries.
Right.
It's not Hijra.
Right.
It's Hijra, maybe. Maybe you can say it's Hijra if you go to Egypt and they give you an Egyptian passport. Or if you go, you're just visiting.
Yeah.
You're a visitor.
Yeah.
So I remember I had a friend of mine years ago. He went to the Yemeni embassy, and I told him, I said, whatever you tell them, don't tell them you want to make Hijra. Just say you want to visit historic sites. So he comes in wearing a turban, thobe. He walks right in and he says, I want to make Hijra to get away from these kuffar. And the secretary says, well, we're not giving visas at this time, but we're going to get some kind of political answer. So we leave. And I said, look, man, you ain't do what I tell you. You got to play it cool. I just happen to know somebody that works at the embassy. I called him up. Everything in the Middle East is Western, right? Those connections. So I called him. He said, look, I'll take care of it, but tell him don't say anything stupid. Went back in. She said, okay, we'll give you the visa. It's for him and his, I think, 2 or 3 kids. And he said, it'd be $320. He says, well, I only have $70. So we left there. We went to the Saudi Embassy Islamic Affairs Division. I was wearing a hat. I literally took my hat off. We passed the hat to get the money for his visa. And we got it.
From the Saudis.
And me and a brother, it was me and a brother from the Bronx, Abu Hudayfa. And Abu Hudayfa, man, I love that brother. He was a real character, real New York guy. And so me and Abu Hudayfa sat there and talked to him like, look, man, how are you going to make Hijra? He said, I got the plane tickets. Okay, how are you going to eat when you get there? How are you going to survive? You have children with you. How are your children going to survive? He said, oh, the Muslims are going to take care of us. Like, man, the Muslims are not taking care of the people there already. They don't want any new poor people. They're not taking care of the poor people that are already in Yemen. So we ended up collecting some funds for him, largely because his kids, right? And I told him, I said, man, you got to be very careful. You always want a return ticket in case there's an illness, in case one of your kids gets sick. Well, he was back like in 6 months because one of his kids got sick. Yeah. And he told me with a straight face, he's like, you'll never believe what happened. My kid got sick and we had to get a ticket from the United States Embassy. And I'm like, yeah, of course I believe what happened. I told you that there's a possibility that this would happen. So for a lot of people, for me, the pull of Hijra was not that deep.